we have any questions for our panel. I think the senator may have won the award for coming the farthest from Sydney. I don't know. I know that folks came a long way. Perth. Okay. Well, that's closer. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So from our organization, we are very concerned about the following topics, because we were talking about the victims, we were talking about the criminal behind the victims, but we are not talking about the client. We are not talking about the consumer of that human products. So what happened with our legislation? We need to include the consumer, because this is a criminal market. And in the criminal market, or in all market, you have two parts, the provider and the consumer. And we are fighting against the provider, but not the consumer. So any idea about that?
You go first.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a very good point, and it's something I think that most of us are still grappling with. So take the example in Australia. Most people in Australia, when you talk about slavery, their eyes glaze over, and it's like, well, that's something, you know, didn't we fix that, you know, a couple of hundred years ago? And how is that relevant to us today? And so in the case of, for example, orphanage trafficking, that actually occurs because criminal networks traffic children into so-called orphanages and boarding schools to entertain volunteers and to solicit donations. It's $1 billion business. But it's such a great scam because people refuse to actually accept personally that instead of helping a poor orphan, they've actually in effect paid a people trafficker to traffic children for them to play with and have photos with. And the same thing in supply chains. You know, all the large, you know, Chinese, for example, online clothing suppliers. Nobody actually stops to think in Australia and elsewhere that when I buy cheap clothes, the only way it can be so cheap is if labour is either forced or free through slavery. So that is, I think, one of the big challenges that we have. And as I said, in a security context, how do we make this personal to consumers globally that they actually, their behaviour contributes to slavery and makes it harder for us as lawmakers to implement legislation and change their behaviour because it's cheap. Our solar panels are cheap, our electric vehicle is cheap, our clothes are cheap. So that's, I think, you've really hit the nail on the head, that as legislators we have to be braver and bolder in actually putting a mirror up to people and then working out how to change behaviour, because it is a criminal enterprise in the end.
So important. I wanted to say one other thing on the sex trafficking side. One of the biggest trends that we see that's unfortunate is, for example, the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. They received over 300 calls to their cyber tip line last year. And that is through exploitation. We're talking online, children being victimized online. And one of the biggest ways that we can deal with the buyers, the people who are literally buying what we call child exploitation, like it's online, digital child exploitation, and they're consuming it, is actually through age verification. So this is one of the most effective laws. In fact, in the state of my home state of Virginia, they passed a law that requires that every person cannot get on a pornographic website until the age of 18. And I know we don't like to talk about pornography, but there is a huge link there. And so if you put age verification in and you actually require that people verify that they are 18 years old to get on a pornographic site, what happened is that Pornhub, which is the largest distributor of this child sexual exploitation in the world, they voluntarily shut down. That was it. They voluntarily shut down in the entire state. And the reason is because of the age verification. And so you start addressing some of these issues. There's a whole lot more. We have chatbots. People are inventing AI technology that's being used and it's being disseminated throughout the U.S. very low. And what it does is it actually targets the buyers. So it goes directly. So when someone gets on a chat and they want to buy a child, it's usually children that they're looking for between the ages of 11 and 14, for sex. It's absolutely disgusting. When they get on there, a chatbot gets up and they don't know that, and it collects all their information. They send it over to law enforcement. Law enforcement is able to intervene and actually arrest these people. And that's when you start to see the patterns change. So there's other things, but those are two sexual exploitation sides.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, because this is a huge cartel, and in some parts of the world, you can find people that are willing to go to wherever anybody wants to take them to. And even when you find them, they are unwilling to return with governments of their nation. I know that it happens in my country, and so this is a huge cartel. But what I'm wondering about, when Jane emphasized the issue of doctors, nurses, hospitals, this cartel involves almost all sectors, running from security to funding to medical, everywhere. Don't you think that the hospitals that people are being taken to could be part of this cartel? Because they just won't take you to any hospital for fear that you can be discovered, and all that. Don't you think that? Because we have to take it a lot deeper to be sure that some of these, people are not working with them to the extent that those are the kind of hospitals that they take them, for medical attention. And that is why the kind of attention that a doctor or a nurse or a medical officer is supposed to give to that patient, considering the level of injury on that individual, is not being looked at in a more closer extent to be able to suspect that something may be wrong. Don't we think that these are special hospitals that they take them to? Thank you.
Well, I get your point, and I can't speak for every country. I can only speak for I've lived in the Netherlands, I've lived in Israel, I've lived in the UK, so I can only speak for what I know. But by doing nothing, because we think, oh, well, it's all corrupt, then nobody's saved, right? So if we implement something at a quality level across every healthcare, and doctors get trained, then you will always get corrupt people, but you'll also get good ones who can also spot the corrupt people. And if we all stand up and say, we're not going to be disheartened, we're going to do it, and every hospital will have this implemented. Like, I just done a project for a year in Romania. I see the man from Romania there. So I work with the British Embassy in Bucharest and an organization called eLiberari. And they also said, where do we start? And we wrote a program for doctors. I went to Romania. We taught 20 doctors from 20 different hospitals. They spread out, trained the trainer. And a week later, we was already being phoned with, oh, we've rescued a lady and a baby. Oh, we've identified somebody else. Without that training, we would not have. So there's one child growing up now in safety. They didn't get disheartened and think there might be corrupt people. Because if people stand up, like there was Dr. Paul who said about getting that code of conduct signed. If you work together as a team in every hospital and you are committed and you hold each other accountable, that's when you weed out everything. And if you have an accident and you're about to die, the traffickers are not going to take you to another country or far away. They take you to the nearest hospital. So there's always hope. That's what I believe in. And by doing nothing, we help nobody. So we have to get over the mentality of thinking, failing before we start. And once you have a team who are working in that hospital, reporting, identifying and standing up together, the cowards who are getting paid money and being corrupt, they will get less and less. So that's what I say. Don't give up.
Thank you very much for this. My name is Charalambos Theventou. I'm a member of parliament from Cyprus. And with regards to the question of the gentleman over there, I just wanted to let you know that there are many European countries where it's a criminal offense to buy the services of a trafficked person. So that really makes it difficult for them. You see a lot of advertisements, but you realize that if anyone responds to an advertisement to buy the sexual services of a person, they might run into the danger of ending up in jail. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, everyone, dear members of Parliament and dear public servants from other countries. My name is Isabel Cortés. I'm a parliamentarian from Peru. And I'd like to say that I come from a country that is highly vulnerable to human trafficking. And in my country, this is a very concerning issue. For example, in illegal mining companies, drug trafficking, that has allowed human trafficking and children trafficking, both boys and girls, in those villages that are far away from the capital city. Sometimes even the actual parents are the ones who sell their children or give their children to these business people and these traffickers who do child trafficking. Sometimes the parents say that it is because of the lack of money or food. And as a former public cleaning worker, because before I was a member of Parliament, I worked for nearly 20 years in the public cleaning service that we have in all countries. Even here in Madrid, I have seen some colleagues from the municipalities cleaning out the streets, and I was one of them. That's where I come from such an important job. And that's where I really saw modern slavery. And in Peru, in many companies and working centers, they have modern slavery. That is due to the misbehavior of companies who are supposed to be formal and legal. Who actually have contracts, for example, with municipalities or with government ministries and departments where they do not respect the human right to work. That's why I asked to strengthen the labor investigation institutions to have the budget so that the prosecutor's office and the police may identify this problem, because this is what happens in Peru. We have many institutions such as the police, the prosecutor's office and the judiciary power, but they are all weakened. And that is why we cannot combat and eradicate human trafficking and children trafficking. There are top civil servants in the legislative powers and in the executive powers that have allowed this, as well as business people and companies going to Peru to supposedly invest. But the only thing they have done was to generate modern slavery and to generate human trafficking and children trafficking. For example, Peru is a rich mining country in gold, in petroleum, in oil. These companies, for example, Chinese companies, wherever they go, there is children trafficking and deaths of laborers, of workers. And the authorities do not even bother or take the time to investigate what happened, what really happened and why these workers died. 2 weeks ago, for example, 13 workers passed away in a Chinese company. And up to now, no public officer has taken the bother to investigate what happened or why these workers passed away. And likewise, the same thing has happened in years before. That's why I do not remember the lady's name, but when she said that lawmakers need to be brave to eradicate these children trafficking and all this abuse. And for example, the fact that the human right to work is not being respected, and to eradicate modern slavery, we need to be extremely brave and pass laws that really help and defend victims. And we need to be brave lawmakers. We need to be brave to pass laws and to sanction and punish all the consumers. And I think I'm taking the example from the lady who just spoke, and that is what we need to take as lawmakers. We need to be brave to eradicate all this. And after many decades, with children trafficking is not from this century, it comes from former centuries. And the 21st century is nearly over, and we're still talking about modern slavery and the slavery of workers and children trafficking. Why do we still have this concern, this issue? If that is a century-old problem, why have we not yet eradicated it? So I think now this is a time to really get down to work as lawmakers, so that we can eradicate this, also so that we will not have that issue anymore in the future centuries. Thank you so much. I think my friend has a question here.
Thank you. And this is not a challenge or issue restricted to one country, and it's not new. It's been going on for centuries or thousands of years. And we have a great panel here. I don't know if there's a question that wanted to respond to the observations, or we can just applause. Thank you. I think the risk is you might be invited to be on the panel next time. So this has been a great event. It's a long day. I know a lot of content on different issues, and you managed to weave in AI in your discussion too, and some of the benefits of AI. I think development of AI that can help prevent some issues around human trafficking. People came from nearby and afar. I mentioned the senator from Perth. I think, Robert, you want me to recognize another member of Parliament here from Equatorial Guinea, if I can say it right. Eulogio Banguro Manana is here today. And a number of other members, and we have about 3,000, listeners and visitors from around the world watching today. Again, a lot of content. We've got a big day tomorrow. We're not done yet today. We've got if you can say, a tour of the Senate and a reception and dinner. Robert, any final remarks?
Distinguidos delegados.
Dear delegates, ladies and gentlemen, due to present edition of the current Interparliamentary Forum on Intelligence and Security, in the name and representation of the Members of Parliament of the House of Deputies of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, I have the honor of being here, and I'm grateful to share with all of you the topic which is the object of this meeting, because the current world is facing big security challenges that are complex and multifaceted. that may keep negatively affecting peace and harmony globally, such as, amongst others, cybersecurity, terrorism, drug trafficking, and human trafficking, as well as armed violence and so on, which aims to have tools of different kinds to strengthen interinstitutional collaboration, to eradicate successfully the capabilities and abilities of the elements that cause these threats. Here lies the importance of the government activity, of intelligence, security, and the legislative function, and also the oversight function of the government by the parliaments, who are not just there to give their institutional contributions in this regard, improving the laws on security, but they should also make sure the governments implement appropriately the policies on intelligence and security for the holistic protection of their representative citizens. The House of Deputies of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, through its National Defense Committee and Internal Order, has a great task in the matter of intelligence and security, willing to study and issue favorable opinions on all sorts of legislative initiatives going in that direction. On the other hand, and in application of its budgetary function, our parliamentary institution has always approved and passed the bills in the general state budgets with large budgetary items aimed to fund all the activities that aid to strengthen intelligence and security in the country. And I finish this short speech by wishing great success to all the participants. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for those remarks. You're right in front of me. I didn't see you, so thanks for getting up here. Yeah.